In the outer reaches of the solar system, the frost line marks more than the divide between rock and ice. It's where heat dies, light fades, and old promises are quietly erased from history. Log entry: Elias Rourke, Commander, Hauler Freighter Kestrel. Mission: deliver exotic isotope package to Cedar Node Theta 7. Status: en route, navigation stable, crew intact. Requesting confirmation of SEEDR beacon ping. Still no response. Welcome back, traveler. Before we set course tonight, take a second to anchor us. A thumbs up or a comment is like a signal ping through the void. It lets me know someone's out there. And if you feel like journeying with us again, subscribing opens the hatch to all future missions. Dim the lights. Get comfortable. Tonight we drift into the unknown. Chapter 1: Ghost Coordinates. Commander Elias Rourke's boots rang against the composite floor of the Kestrel's command deck. The hum of the fusion drive was steady now, background noise that had faded to subconscious rhythm after years of these runs. He stared through the forward viewport, where Saturn's rings slowly receded into a narrowing crescent. Beyond them, the deep. "Do we get Saturn ring views on this route?" Bryn Ivy said from behind him, "or is it straight to deep black?" She always spoke like she was half performing, but the shine in her eyes was real. Bryn was a generation younger than the rest of the crew, bright, overqualified, and still excited by things like orbital alignments and dust storms on Enceladus. "We'll pass Titan in 3 days," said Rahul Dex, not even glancing up from the nav panel. "After that, nothing but ice and static. Just how I like it." He said it with the weariness of a man who'd long stopped expecting the universe to offer anything back. "This run's short, clean and well paid," Rourke said. "No sightseeing detours." "As long as the isotopes arrive intact," Lanya Kadir added from the rear of the deck, not looking up from her datapad. "Sightseeing's irrelevant." Her voice was precise, her posture perfect. Even out here, in a ship held together with weld patches and outdated firmware, she carried herself like she was still in a boardroom. Bryn turned in her seat to look at her. "What is Cedar, anyway? Nobody talks about it. No hollows, no specs, no announcements. You'd think a project that big would at least have a launch video." "Deep system relay," Rahul said with a shrug. "Big, ugly, half-built thing. Probably just burns money and reputation." Rourke's voice was quiet. "Or it doesn't exist at all." The silence that followed was subtle, but it settled between them like static in the bones. The crew of the Kestrel were not friends. They were functionally compatible freelancers, 4 people who had signed on for a high-pay, no-questions cargo run beyond the frost line. In the outer system, that meant you didn't ask about cargo, origin, or purpose. Still, rhythms formed. Bryn spent her time bouncing between comms and maintenance diagnostics. Rahul grumbled about firmware conflicts and muttered dark things about long-range mission planners. Lanya lived inside encrypted files, Rourke observed, quietly, like always. He wasn't much for idle talk. The quiet out here wasn't just natural, it was necessary. Too many voices could echo in ways you didn't expect, especially in ships this old. 3 days past Titan, they gathered in the mess. The light was dull, the food worse. Lanya stood beside the projection table, arms behind her back. "Cedar," she began, "stands for Solar Expanse Energy and Deep Resource. Officially, it's a distributed relay node for transmitting solar fusion energy to colonies beyond Saturn's orbit. What you've been told isn't false, but it's limited." "How limited?" Rahul asked, arms folded across his chest. "Enough that none of you have seen construction schematics or installation logs." "That's comforting." "Cedar's location is classified. Final coordinates will be delivered at T-18 hours." "How do you classify a megastructure?" Bryn asked. "It's 20 clicks long, right? Or more. You can't exactly hide something like that behind a moon." Lanya didn't flinch. "You don't hide it. You bury it in procedural noise. You create half a dozen fake projects around it. Shell corporations, dummy contracts, sensor-dampening protocols. You build it where no one's looking." "The frost line," Rourke said. "Exactly." The isotope container sat in a recessed cargo slot, shielded on all sides by composite plating. Warning stencils wrapped every surface in faded red text. No manifest listed its exact contents, only an alpha-level clearance tag and a 36-hour half-life cycle. It pulsed faintly, not audibly, but Rourke could feel it. That night, he stood before it again. Bryn joined him, barefoot, wrapped in a thermal wrap, sipping from a rehydrated tea pouch. "It's kind of beautiful," she said. "It's a bomb," Rourke said. "Then it's a beautiful bomb." She sat down on a crate. "You really think Cedar's fake?" "No." "Then what is it?" "Something that doesn't want to be found." The next morning, Rourke pored over the ship's flight logs. There was a drift anomaly, a subtle one. The ship's guidance system kept correcting for delta shifts in ways that didn't match the gravitational environment. Not solar wind, not asteroid shadow, something else, a pattern, a tug. Like the ship wasn't drifting towards Cedar, it was being pulled into alignment with something that had already plotted its arrival. He flagged the logs, tagged them with an encrypted timestamp, didn't tell anyone yet. Later in the command deck, Bryn tried again. "I don't think Lanya's told us the whole story." "That's obvious," Rourke said, "but you knew it before we launched. You didn't trust her from the start." He turned toward her, face worn thin by long orbits and broken promises. "People like her don't end up on ships like this unless they're here to watch the rest of us disappear. That's paranoid. That's experience." Bryn stayed up late, scanning the telemetry bus. She caught a signal, short, clipped, low band and encrypted in a pre-expansion protocol. She isolated it, played it back, a burst, then silence. It was coming from inside the cargo, and something, somewhere, was answering. Chapter 2. Transmission in the Dark. They were 2 days past Titan when the first signal anomaly showed up. The Kestrel cruised in silence through the void. The fusion drive was running in low idle, humming behind the bulkhead like a distant engine in a dream. Inside the ship, life cycled with the hum. Light dimmed in 16-hour intervals. Thermal vents hissed in subtle pulses, and the same playlist of mid-century synth loops played faintly over the internal speakers. Bryn Ivy sat hunched over the comms console, one leg tucked under her. She wasn't monitoring official channels anymore, not since she realized they were receiving nothing from SEEDR. No beacon, no telemetry, no confirmation ping, and no denial either, just absence. So she went digging. She had routed her scans to look for low-frequency backscatter, something a relay would use to quietly maintain sync without giving up its position. She didn't expect to find anything, but then she did. A pulse, short, narrow band, faint and familiar. She replayed it. Low energy, modulated, almost binary, not noise. "Commander," she called over the intercom, "can you come take a look at this?" Rourke had just sat down in the mess with a bowl of grain paste and instant broth. He sighed, left the tray, and made his way forward. As he passed the crew quarters, Rahul looked up from his bunk. "Tell her to stop chasing ghosts," he muttered. Rourke didn't reply. When he stepped into the comms bay, Bryn spun her chair around and gestured to the screen. "There, you see that? That's not random, that's structured. And it's repeating." Rourke frowned. "Could be ring interference from the Saturn sling." "It's not Saturn." "Then what?" "The cargo." Rourke leaned closer. "It's transmitting. More like responding, or handshaking. It's subtle, like it was waiting for something to trigger it." He studied the waveform, an old structure. Mid-2010s. Pre-expansion EarthGov protocol. Not used in civilian networks since before LunarNet went orbital. "Encrypted?" he asked. "Yeah, legacy cipher. AES chain, but degraded." "Meaning?" "Meaning it's not just talking, it's talking to something else. Something that knows the same language." Rourke's brow creased. He pulled back and looked at the sealed black casing of the cargo container through the inner viewport. "You tell anyone else?" "Not yet. I figured I'd come to you first." He turned on his heel and walked out without another word. He caught Lanya in the hallway near the junction node. She was just exiting the environmental diagnostics bay, datapad in one hand. "We have a problem," he said. "Only one. The cargo's broadcasting, and something's answering." She didn't blink. just arched an eyebrow. Of course it is. You knew. I know a lot of things, Commander. I know that this vessel is on contract. I know that your job is delivery, not decryption. And I know that your clearance level doesn't cover mission architecture. We're not just delivering fuel, Rourke said. I never said you were. She walked past him without breaking stride. In engineering, Rahul Dex sat with his feet propped on the console, staring at a rotating telemetry plot. What the hell, he muttered. Rourke entered behind him. You seeing drift? Number worse. We're not drifting at all. Our acceleration curve's locked in. No variance, no bleed, no loss curve from microburn. But we're not using fuel. Drive output steady but dead. Rourke's eyes narrowed. Explain. We should be slowing. Instead, we're adjusting course slightly but consistently, like someone's overriding the guidance from outside. He switched displays. A line of code scrolled up the diagnostics console, showing recursive corrections in trajectory every 17 minutes. That's not nav assist, Rourke said. Nope, that's someone flying us remotely. Someone local? Has to be. There's no way Earth Command is piping control this far without latency. Rourke stared at the screen. The ship wasn't on autopilot. It was being pulled. That night, the crew gathered in the mess. The lights were dimmed to a red shift cycle. Synthetic stew bubbled in a dispenser unit, but no one touched it. The signal stopped, Bryn said quietly. Good, Rahul muttered. No, she said. It stopped because something responded. Rourke looked up. From where? I can't triangulate it. It's not external. Not exactly. It's like the signal looped, like whatever answered was on a mirrored circuit. Local echo. You're saying the ship's talking to itself, or something inside the ship is talking to something just outside the edge of our resolution envelope. Lanya entered then, smooth and composed. We'll be arriving in 20 hours, she said. You'll be briefed before docking. You could brief us now, Rourke said. I could, she said, but you're not cleared. Cleared? Rahul barked. We're the only ship out here. You're the delivery crew. You'll do your part. The rest is need to know. Lady, he said, standing up, you ever keep information from someone during a hard burn re-entry? Know what happens? You bury 6 people and run dry oxygen until they rot. This isn't a re-entry, Lanya said. This is a transition. She turned and left them again. That night, the Kestrel changed. The lights flickered without command. Gravity spiked in Deck B for 2 seconds, slamming Bryn into a bulkhead. Rahul's quarters dropped to sub-zero for 10 minutes before stabilizing. The internal comms pinged once. Empty channel, no source. In his bunk, Rourke heard the sound of a heartbeat echoing through the hull. Slow, steady, mechanical. He sat upright, sweat on his face, even though the cabin was cold. At 0523 ship time, the nav beacon activated, not from the ship, from Cedar. The message was short, automated, and devoid of signature. Cedar. Docking corridor established. Initiate delivery sequence. There was no voice, no acknowledgement, no greeting, just instruction. Rourke stood alone in the command deck, looking out at the deep black ahead. The stars had thinned to pinpricks. Even Jupiter was gone now, lost behind Saturn's shadow. It's real, he said. And for the first time since launch, he wished it wasn't. Chapter 3, The Structure. The Kestrel dropped out of autonomous burn protocol 20 kilometers from the object. They didn't decelerate on their own. The ship simply slowed, gently, unnaturally, until it matched velocity with something that none of them had seen before, yet all had felt waiting for them. It hung in the dark like a myth made real. Bryn was the first to spot the object fully. Her breath caught as she stared out the forward viewport. Oh my God. The structure was not a relay station. It wasn't even a habitat array. It was a ship. Spanning nearly 20 kilometers long, its silhouette spun slowly in the black, an impossible construct of interwoven sail struts, cryovolts, and ion shell segments. It looked like something grown, not built. A spine of clustered habitats and fuel rings spiraled around a central axis. The whole thing shimmered, not with power or life, but with memory. Reflective sail filaments caught the sun's whisper from across 1 billion kilometers, lighting up fractured shapes like wings. Rahul's voice broke the silence. That's not a node. That's an arc. They didn't initiate docking. SEEDR did. Their ship's systems flickered, manual override engaged, then disengaged again. The fusion drive throttled to 0 and thruster arrays fired with no input from Rahul. "We're not flying," he said. "We're being flown." "I'm reading a gravitic coupler signal," Bryn added. "It's gently pulling us in." "Like we're cargo," Rourke muttered. Cedar's docking corridor extended from a central module like an unfolding ribcage, opening to receive them. Not a mechanical gantry, not visibly. It moved too smoothly, too deliberately. When the Kestrel finally stopped, it did so in total silence. They boarded in pairs, Bryn with Rourke, Rahul with Lanya. Inside, silence. The airlock led to a chamber flooded with pale light. Walls lined with embedded insulation, power conduits glowing faintly beneath transparent panels. The corridors curved slightly, giving the sensation of organic design, more habitat than factory. "Gravity's active," Rahul said. "Artificial, but low." Bryn touched a wall console. It flickered to life with a slow heartbeat pulse, no interface, no prompt. Just a soft, steady rhythm. "Everything here is on," she whispered. "But there's no one home." "You sure about that?" Rourke asked. They walked the halls of SEEDR like intruders. The ship was functional. That much was clear. Power hummed from deep in its spine. Life support was not only active, but cycling as if it had passengers. Cryogenic modules lined one deck like tombs. Sleek, pristine, sealed. Thousands of them. "All filled," Bryn said, breath catching. "They're not empty." "Some of them are children," Lanya said. Rourke turned to her. "You've been here before." "Once," she admitted, "not this section." "Then what is this place really?" Lanya walked forward. Her voice was almost gentle. "It's a lifeboat, and it's already boarded." They reached the heart of Cedar, a circular room with a central pedestal and a single open port labeled in faded stenciling. "Phase lock, manual insertion required." A slot waited, cold and ready, the final interface untouched. The isotope payload in their cargo bay wasn't just fuel, it was a key. "This powers the launch?" Rourke asked. "It finishes the sequence," Lanya said. "The sail deploys, the ion spine fires, navigation locks to outbound, Barnard's star, 600 years. You knew this all along?" "Of course." "Why us?" "Because no one would believe you, and no one will miss you." Bryn stepped back from the core, shaking her head. "This isn't right. We didn't sign up for this. We're activating a ghost ship." "It's not a ghost ship," Lanya said. "It's a seed." "So you're planting humanity on another world while Earth burns?" "Humanity's already burning," Lanya snapped. "This is what survives the fire." Rourke turned toward her, jaw tight. "Who's aboard?" "Who gets to go?" "Children of founders, technocrats, scientists, wealth fund inheritors, selected genomes. The people who made the Exodus project happen. And the rest of us? Our shadows." Rahul finally spoke, voice low and flat. "So this isn't a delivery, it's a burial." "No," Rourke said, "it's a send-off. They wanted to launch it quiet. Out of sight, out of mind." He looked back at the port. The device in their cargo hold was warming now, cycling to active state. "We were never meant to know," Bryn said, "and if we had refused?" "Another crew," Lanya said. "Eventually someone would finish the job." There was a long silence in the chamber. Rourke walked toward the pedestal. Bryn stepped in front of him. "Don't. Once you do, that's it." "There are people in those vaults," he said, "already loaded, already asleep. Some of them are kids. They're not at fault for the world that built this." Rahul shook his head. "And what happens to us?" "We make sure someone remembers." He slid the payload into the slot. A tone sounded, subtle, almost like an exhale. Lights flickered. A line of energy flowed into the core. Systems awoke. "Phase lock. Complete synchronization. Active preparing for launch." They returned to the Kestrel in silence. Bryn didn't speak. Rahul checked system status with haunted eyes. Cedar had released them the moment the payload was accepted. Rourke stood in the command deck and watched the sails begin to unfold in the black. Miles of gossamer film catching what little starlight remained. The ship vibrated, alive with purpose now. Bryn's voice came from behind him. "We just let it go." "We didn't start this," Rourke said, "but we saw it. That means we have a responsibility." To who? To whoever's left. Chapter 4. The Final Log. They were back aboard the Kestrel, drifting on residual thrust from Cedar's magnetic disengage. The launch sequence had begun, and there was no stopping it now. They had delivered the final piece. The ship, if it could still be called that, was no longer a secret. But it wasn't screaming either. It was whispering, silently departing the solar system, heading toward another sun. Time T-010615. They'd lost nav control again, not forcibly, just no longer needed. Cedar's trajectory had been calculated centuries ago, its route pre-approved by algorithms buried deeper than Earth's tectonic drift. Bryn sat at the comms console, staring at the dark telemetry graph. "They didn't even ping us goodbye," she said, "not even a handshake." "Why would they?" Rahul muttered, running diagnostics on the shuttle systems. "We're not on the manifest." Rourke stood at the bridge viewport, watching the sails slowly turn outward. The fusion engine had yet to ignite, but the glow from Cedar's supercapacitors lit the emptiness like a false sunrise. "Still nothing from Earth?" he asked. Bryn shook her head. "No live link, too far out for real time, but background telemetry's off, like something's changed behind us. Something big." The Kestrel was breaking down. The main drive was unresponsive. Life support still ran on local generators, but efficiency was dropping. Rahul tracked thermal bleed through the aft coolant loop and found a slow leak. Not critical, yet. But the margins were closing. "We've got maybe 72 hours before the CO2 scrubbers stop cycling," he said. "What about the shuttle?" Rourke asked. "Functional, but we only have 2 seats and a week's worth of provisions." "We can make Saturn orbit on minimal thrust," Bryn offered, "if we slingshot right." "With luck," Rahul added, "and no solar interference, which, in case you missed it, isn't a guarantee this far out." "So we send 2, Rourke said flatly. He pulled the analog transmitter from beneath the floor plate. It hummed softly as he aligned the manual beacon. The system had no smart interface, no tracking, no automatic routing. But it had one advantage: it couldn't be silenced. He keyed in his final transmission. "This is Commander Elias Rourke of the Hauler Kestrel. SEEDR is real. It is not a power station. It is not a deep space relay. It is a lifeboat. It launched today from coordinates classified beyond the frost line. It carries the children of a broken Earth. And it leaves behind the rest of us. We were the final delivery crew. We were not meant to survive this. But we are alive, and we remember. This signal will bounce. We've loaded it on a dozen nav buoys. If you hear this, if you get this, know what they did. Remember the names they buried." He paused, then added quieter, "We didn't light the fire, but we watched the spark take hold." Bryn confronted him in the narrow corridor outside the bridge. "You're planning to stay behind. There's only room for 2. So we rotate, we improvise. You don't have to die for this. I've lived long enough to know when a cost is worth paying. That's not noble, that's defeat. It's math. I'm the heaviest. I consume more air and food, and I'm the only one who's seen Cedar's telemetry protocols. If they come looking, I'll know how to bury them in false trails." Rahul joined them, arms crossed. "You think Earth will care?" he asked. "I don't care what Earth does," Rourke said. "I care what people do. If one person hears that log, if one colony reads that name, it's enough." Bryn shook her head, eyes glassy. "You sound like you've been waiting for this moment your whole life." Rourke smiled grimly. "Maybe I have." Launch T-00:0800. Cedar ignited. There was no visible flame, only a spreading ripple of light, like gravity bending around a falling stone. The fusion spine flared, and the structure began to glide, not burn, outward. It didn't look like a launch, it looked like something leaving for good. 600 years, Bryn whispered. Give or take, Rahul added. If they make it, she said. They'll make it, Rourke said. They're the investment. They worked in silence. Rourke loaded the nav plan into the shuttle manually. He rigged the solar sails to open mid-flight to catch the thermal pulse. Every second counted. Every molecule of stored fuel, every joule of backup power. He handed Bryn a sealed data stick. Everything I've logged, every ping, every drift delta, every camera sweep of SEEDR. Upload it the moment you get signal. What if they don't believe us? She asked. Then make them. He sealed the hatch. Bryn stared at him through the viewport until the release cycle engaged. On the Kestrel, Rourke powered down the non-essential systems. The ship was cooling now, not catastrophically. Not yet. But the temperature would drop, the air would grow thin, and the light would fade. He didn't mind. He liked the quiet. From the viewport, Cedar was already invisible, only a trail of thermal residue left behind. He sat in the command chair, helmet beside him, eyes closed. Then a sound, a beep. Bryn's voice crackled through the static. We're picking up a response ping, old EarthGov channel. Repeaters faint, but we're catching signal. Might be a listening post still active near Titan orbit. Keep your burn tight, Rourke replied. Watch for thermal shear. I'll keep the line open until I can't. Rourke, she said. Yeah? Thank you. Tell them we didn't vanish. Tell them we were here. Chapter 5. The Cold Turn. The Kestrel was dying, quietly, with dignity. Like everything beyond the frost line, Commander Elias Rourke could feel it, not through alarms or system alerts, but in the subtle changes. The way air tasted thinner, how the artificial gravity lagged by milliseconds, the way the lights dimmed a fraction earlier in the ship's sleep cycle. The vessel had done its job, so had he. Now it was just a question of how long it could hold on, and whether anyone would remember it had. Bryn's voice echoed through the comms loop. Shuttle's out of range in 5 minutes. Last telemetry bounce clear. Copy that, Rourke said. You're steady on course? Yeah, navigation's stable. Rahul's sleeping. Finally, I think the stress finally caught up. It will, Rourke said. Usually waits until it's quiet. There was a pause on the line. Then her voice came through again, softer. You sure about this? I'm already here. But you don't have to stay. We can rotate crew. We could have figured it out. Not without risking failure. And we don't get to fail, Bryn. Not now. He moved slowly through the ship, checking systems even though it no longer mattered. Life support read nominal, but the scrubbers had begun to frost at the intake rings. The auxiliary power lines buzzed with static interference. The magnetic coupler ports were leaking ions, barely, but enough to know the Kestrel was bleeding from invisible seams. Rourke passed through the crew quarters. He paused at each bunk. Bryn's blanket was still wrapped tight, left behind like a skin shed before transformation. Rahul's bunk smelled faintly of whiskey and engine grease. Lanya's was still made, untouched, crisp, like her presence had always been temporary. He stopped at his own quarters. He opened the small cabinet inside. Inside was a single photo, a woman and a child, smiling, pre-expansion Earth. He stared at it a long moment, then closed the cabinet. They made it off-world, he whispered. I hope you never see what I've seen. An hour later, a chirp echoed from the bridge. Not from Bryn, not EarthGov, something else. He staggered to the console, heart suddenly pounding harder than it had in weeks. He pulled up the signal trace. The waveform was ancient, like the old SETI sweeps he'd studied in academy theory. Except this wasn't alien, this was human. An emergency protocol, encrypted but brute forcible. He launched a script, let it crunch. Elsewhere. Bryn awoke in the shuttle's passenger seat. Rahul slumped beside her, strapped in tight. The display showed power levels holding and trajectory on track. She checked the comms. Still got you, Rourke, she said. Barely. Your signal's degraded. I know, came the tired reply. Something's pinging me out here. Another Cedar craft. Number 2 small. Low band. Local system. I think it's a drone relay. Maybe a remnant from the Titan polar network. You think it's active? More importantly, it's listening. He rewrote the beacon message. spliced SEEDR's coordinates, his logs, and a personal addendum, laced it with every known compression algorithm, tagged it with EarthGov flags and lunar corporate identifiers to increase the odds someone wouldn't wipe it automatically. He routed it to the signal and waited. A blink. Then another. Received. Someone, or something, acknowledged the transmission. He allowed himself one breath of satisfaction, then closed his eyes. Temperature was dropping. Not drastically, but enough. The hull felt colder. He sat in the command chair, wrapped in his old mission jacket, helmet beside him. A soft voice came through the comms once more. "Bryn, if we make it back, what should I tell them?" He answered without hesitation. "Tell them they shut the door behind them. But some of us stayed." "What else?" "Tell them the stars aren't the promise, they're the test." "That's bleak." "It's true." Somewhere near the Jovian Trojans, a data buoy picked up the ping and rebroadcast it. It hit another in orbit around Ganymede, then another at a dormant Europa research array. It wasn't fast, but it moved. And Earth, busy, fractured, gasping under its weight, finally picked up a whisper in the static. A voice. Epilogue. 3 months later, a whistleblower on Lunar Station leaked fragments of the SEEDR coordinates to a citizen nav collective. Unverified, they claimed, conspiracy. Within weeks, a swarm of amateur signalers began bouncing the signature. It was undeniable. A ship had launched, a crew had stayed behind, and one man's voice echoed through the void. Final log entry, Commander Elias Rourke. "The stars aren't the promise, they're the test. Anyone can run, but it takes something else to stay behind, to rebuild, to remember. This is Rourke. I stayed.